Did you know that 80% of New Year's resolutions fail by February? That's right. Most New Year's resolutions don't even make it past the first month. So that's why this year I'm completely ditching the idea of New Year's resolutions. And if you want to know why and what I'm doing instead, stick around, because this video might just change your perspective on New Year's resolutions too. Hey folks, my name's Ollie. I want you to imagine that you're in a manual car. You put your foot down on the clutch, you select first gear, and you begin to move off. But you move too quickly. Your foot is all the way down on the accelerator, and all of a sudden the car comes to a screeching halt, and you've stalled the engine. Whilst this might sound like last weekend when my little sister was taking me out for a drive, this is your New Year's resolution. Your New Year's resolution is stalling, and you're never moving out of first gear. And I'm going to keep using this car analogy when it comes to resolutions, because I think we can look at goals in 3 different ways. So first off, how do we actually move off? Right? How do we start and get going? Then how do we build momentum? And then finally, how do we maintain that momentum, right? And how do we commit to these goals going forwards? So in terms of avoiding stalling, I've tried setting New Year's resolutions in the past. I've noticed a pattern. I can kind of get away with missing one day at a time, but whenever I seem to miss 2 consecutive days, the whole house of cards would just come crashing down, and all of those habits that I'd formed over the previous 2 or 3 weeks just wouldn't stick. But here's the thing. Whenever I was setting resolutions, it was always to eat healthier and go to the gym and read more and spend more time with my family. So instead of just having one resolution that I wanted to work on and build on, it was this whole host of things that obviously were kind of in some sort of inadequacy because I wanted to improve them from the previous year. And I'm sure that kind of hits home with a lot of you as well. You'd have this big idea of resolutions that you wanted to commit to. You'd have a big speed up right at the start, and all of a sudden you feel like you're on this wave of momentum and you're feeling great, and then all of a sudden you crash right down. I think James Smith puts it best when he uses the analogy of a table. Imagine this. You've bought a table online, let's say from IKEA. So if we imagine that all of the legs of the table are the different habits that you have in your life, and then all of a sudden you want to modify the habits, the legs of the table in this analogy. And instead of kind of methodically taking the table apart and seeing how each part fits together, you just intuitively, really quickly kind of dismantle it and put it back up in a state that doesn't really look similar to the original table, and on the surface maybe looks better. It looks nicer, there's a fresh coat of paint, let's say. That's cool. Like, the table gets used for a couple of weeks. You have your whole family round and you show them the table and you say, look at this amazing table. It's absolutely nothing like before. It's fantastic. It's new. It's modern. Everybody's around there at the dinner table 1 week, usually around week 3, and it comes crashing down. You're embarrassed. There's food all on the floor. Your family are disappointed in you. You're disappointed in yourself for not being able to construct the perfect table. And this just perfectly equates to the problem with setting New Year's resolutions. It's that we go all in way too quickly. And instead of starting small and scaling up, we commit too much in too short of a period of time. So the way that we don't stall the engine is we focus on one of the legs at a time. Just pick one habit or one goal that you want to improve and work on, and then start the hamster wheel spinning, and everything just kind of serendipitously falls into place. But how do we begin to accelerate? How do we move through the gears, and how do we build on that good start of just picking one habit and one goal to focus on? Well, whilst willpower is good enough for the first 2 or 3 weeks, it's not good enough to sustain long-term growth and long-term commitment. Instead, we need to focus on the idea of habit stacking. And if you're familiar with the book Atomic Habits, you'll know all about this. Basically, what this means is that to build long-term sustainable goals and to keep improving, we need to design an environment and a location that makes it easy. So let me give you an example. If you've decided that your goal is to lose weight, and you know, like most people, that you need to be in a calorie deficit to do this, then you might decide that one of the things that is holding you back is eating too much chocolate. So instead of having the chocolate in the fridge or the cupboard and then trying to resist the urge to eat it every single time you walk into the kitchen, a better thing to do is just not to buy the chocolate, not to have it in the fridge or in the cupboard. And then you never have the urge or the temptation because it's just not there. And here's the thing. Human beings are just inherently lazy, and waiting for the perfect time to start something often is the case at New Year's. It's just ridiculous. I guess this often masks perfectionism. But real change isn't about perfect starts. It's just about making small and consistent, manageable steps. And not only are humans inherently lazy, we're also inherently selfish. It's nice to have a big group sat around that table, appreciating the beauty and the elegance of it, but that doesn't sustain long-term growth. What does sustain long-term growth is intrinsic motivation that comes from within. But that's often hard to find. But whilst it's hard to find, we know that intrinsic motivation is crucial to long-term success. And how do we find it? Well, here's what I'm doing. I'm shifting my focus away from the outcomes of goals and more into the actions and the steps along the way. So instead of saying that I want to get a six-pack or to lose 5 kilos, I'm saying that I want to get physically fitter and feel better with myself along the way. And this shift to focusing on the journey means that I'm not getting disheartened or kind of annoyed or disillusioned if it doesn't always go perfectly to plan. So I want to give you a framework that has helped me to find and manage these goals. And it's called the SMART framework. S-M-A-R-T. And the S stands for specific. So this means we need to specifically define our goal. But I want you to think about focusing on the actions that you can take, right? Rather than the long-term result. So instead of saying you want to read more, which is way too broad and vague, you want to say, okay, I want to read 10 pages of a book every night. And then we come to M, which stands for measurable. And we need a way of measuring this specific action often. So ideally, this would be every day or every time you want to carry out this action, but at the very least, it should try and be every week. Now, I think most of you will find this part kind of easy. If you're going to the gym and you're lifting weights, it's pretty easy to note down how many repetitions you're doing or how heavy the weight is that you're lifting. Or equally, if you're reading a book, you can write down almost in a diary how many pages you read each night. That is one way that we can be measuring the progress of our goals. But another thing I want you to think about is that intrinsic motivation, and also things that can't necessarily be measured, like happiness or just how you feel within yourself, which are equally as important as how many weights you can lift or how many pages of a book you can read. How do you measure happiness? That's such an abstract thing. And this is where I would recommend keeping a journal. Now, there's loads of YouTube videos and blogs and Instagram posts that all give you kind of prompts and ideas about how to get started journaling and stuff, but it's so simple. Now, I'd recommend just going old school. Grab a pen and some paper and just start writing. So it's really important to measure both aspects of the action, the things that we can see, but also the things that we can't see. And then we come to the A, which stands for actionable. Now, of course, it's easy to have a system in place, but the hard part is often actually doing it. And this is where habit stacking really comes into its own. So you want to make things as easy as possible. So that might look like setting your running clothes out the night before you want to go for a run in the morning, or putting your favorite book on your bedside cabinet so it's right there in plain sight, or setting up your guitar on a stand so you can see it if you want to play more. Little things like this just build an environment that makes it easy to carry out these goals and resolutions. Awesome. So now we come to the R, which stands for relevance. And that basically just means that if things aren't working or you're not feeling good from the actions that you're carrying out, just stop or at least change things up. And then we come to T, which typically stands for time, but I don't really agree with this. I think the idea of tying together a habit with a date or a specific time you want to accomplish it by is quite ridiculous. And instead, we should focus on the happiness and the feelings that we get out of doing the action. And this goes hand in hand with the thesis that Ali Abdaal posits in his new book, Feel Good Productivity, which basically says that if we feel good doing something, then we're more likely to continue doing it because it's not going to feel like a chore or something that we have to do. And this brings us all the way back to the beginning of the video, why 80% of New Year's resolutions fail by February. It's because they're just that. They're resolutions. It's too much to handle in one sitting, especially for somebody that hasn't stuck with goals before. So that's my alternative approach on resolutions, right? I think that we're much better focusing on one goal at a time and building it up from the ground floor, rather than having these big ideas of grandeur and stuff that we want to achieve. And it's much more realistic to focus on one single goal at a time. And that's what constitutes long-term success and long-term consistency. So that's it, guys. What do you think? Do you have any resolutions or maybe even a different strategy that you use at the beginning of the year? If so, let me know in the comment section below and I'll be really interested to hear. And if one of your goals this year is to have more time to spend on hobbies like the guitar or sports that you actually enjoy, then we have loads of videos on this channel all about how you can leverage AI to save you time and give you free time back. So if that sounds interesting, please check out one of the many videos we have. But that's all for now. Please like, subscribe, and I'll see you all soon.